50mm is no doubt a beautiful focal length that fits in many situations, including portraiture, street photography, food, and gimbal. And we used to call the 50mm f1.8 the 50 nifty because it's cheap and also has a decent image quality at the same time. And on this channel, I tested the Sony 50mm f1.8 many times. To be honest, I don't really prefer it because of the autofocus speed and the image quality as well. I mean, like, it has a decent image quality, but not the greatest. Now today we have the new Viltrox 50mm f1.8. This lens cost about $380, built well and feels great, and also features decent performance. Here we'll test it side by side with the Sony 50mm f1.8, so you make up your mind which one suits you the best. Omahi, and let's get these guys on test. Alright, so in order to test the two lenses, I teamed up with Alena, a talented guitar instructor in Dubai, and with my good friend Sami in the gym. So basically we'll test both lenses, performance, image and build quality, sharpness, autofocus speed, chromatic aberration, lens flare, and gimbal performance. Now what about sharing with you some images and videos shot with both lenses, side by side? Let's give it a shot. But I need you to figure out which lens is A and which one is B, which one is Sony and which one is Viltrox. I will be revealing that in a moment for your reference. 50mm is a beautiful focal length for portraiture and it has enough background separation to please the eye. Even though 85mm is my favorite, I still use 50mm frequently to get different perspectives. Alright, here we go. Lens A is Sony and lens B is Viltrox. And now we'll start the actual review by testing the autofocus speed. Here we have the Sony 50mm running on the latest firmware version. I've heard the lens really got better performance than before. Now Viltrox autofocus motor is completely silent and you hear nothing when the focus distance changed. Whereas Sony 50mm is a little bit noisy because unfortunately it's using an old technology. So we'll have both lenses tested side by side and let's find which one has a better job. First one, we're testing close and far subject autofocus. By the way, here I'm using Sony a7 III with fast and responsive autofocus settings. There is no doubt that Viltrox has a remarkable better autofocus performance and Sony suffers from focus breathing. See here for example. Alright, the other test is autofocus object tracking. And here to be honest, I'm not satisfied with any of them. So the point here is to test both lenses wide open at f1.8 and f2. And there is no value in my perspective to get a prime lens and shoot at f2.8 for example, but we'll cover the sharpness image quality at different apertures later in the video. So I used f1.8 most of the time and you know I wanted to test the lenses the hard way. f1.8 is no doubt a beautiful aperture for such a shoot. Now both images are fantastic and color graded using my presets if you wonder. And here by purpose, I positioned the camera at a low angle because I believe it looks better. Anyway, when zooming in to 100 and 200%, I see that Viltrox is quite sharper than Sony. See the eye right here? And again at f1.8, here we get another shot from this side. Both images are lovely and charming, and again when zooming in to 200%, Viltrox is somehow sharper in my opinion. This is the original image by the way, and now when my preset is applied. I mentioned my presets a couple of times in this video, and here I would like to share more with you. So we got the 3 Lightroom presets for different scenarios: nature bounce, urban, winter and fall. And if you like the theme I'm using here, head off to omagomrawi.com/store and get yours today. Here we have another shot at f2. The 2 images look awesome, and Elena is feeling good playing guitar. And again, I see Viltrox is sharper than Sony at 200% zoom. That's not only in the center, Viltrox is remarkably sharper on the sides as well. And I kept playing with Viltrox and Sony, tried different locations and pauses, and here at f2.2 we got a pretty much similar image quality right in the center. And finally, here I wanted sharp and minimum autofocus in the overhead image, so I shot at f2.8. And here I believe the 2 images share the same image quality on the subject, while Viltrox is remarkably sharper off-center. It's obvious when holding both lenses that Viltrox is built pretty well, basically from metal, whereas Sony feels plasticky. Viltrox feels premium and actually heavier than Sony 50mm. We get 340 grams versus 190 grams. Even though Viltrox is heavier, still a lightweight lens. Both lenses have no buttons, however Viltrox has a nice aperture ring, so you can adjust that from the lens itself. It's a common feature among cinema lenses. We're talking a lot about Viltrox, but I really like it more than Sony. Anyway, here we have a 55mm filter size, and Sony has 49mm. And since 50mm is a telephoto range, and for that reason we get a large minimum focus distance. The 50mm Viltrox offers 55cm 22 inches minimum focus distance, whereas the 50mm Sony has 45cm 18 inches minimum focus distance. That means you can get closer with Sony, but 50mm is anyway a zoom focal length. Additionally, Viltrox features a micro USB port if you wish to update the firmware in the future. And also the 50mm Viltrox comes with a lens hood, while Sony has no hood provided with the lens. And when it comes to gimbals, I do prefer the 50mm focal length over an 85mm. In my experience with a 50mm lens on gimbal, you can easily make parallax movements and keep the subject in the mirror while the background is moving. It's much harder to do the same job with an 85mm, for example. Lens flare is a matter of taste in my perspective, and here I see both lenses do well. Anyhow, Viltrox features resistance nano coating, which helps in suppressing flare and ghosting and ending up with a greater contrast and colors when working in strong lighting conditions. Food photography. It's unusual using a 50mm prime in food photography, however I was doing a session and I got these lenses on test. I see the 50mm range works very well in the overhead shots. It's not too wide to ruin your image and show the setup that you don't wish, and not too tight to make you set the camera much higher. And here I shot my images at f4 in order to make sure the subject is somehow completely in focus. I supposed to do f8 for better results, but anyway, here we are. So when looking at both images at f4, the sharpness is quite similar in the center, while at the edges of the cake, Sony is not that great. I'm 100% sure the focus point in both images is the same. Also, see here at the dot corner, Viltrox is remarkably sharper. In the sample images, we tested the lenses wide open at f1.8 and f2, and here in this part of the video we'll do deep sharpness test comparison. So wide open at f1.8, I did not expect that Sony is a bit sharper in the center, but Viltrox is remarkably sharper at sides and corners. And now jumping to f2, I see both lenses share the same sharpness in the center, while Viltrox is remarkably sharper at sides and corners. And we get the same results at f2.2 and f2.5. And finally, at f2.8 and f4, both lenses roughly share the same image quality in the center, while Viltrox is still sharper at corners. And when it comes to color fringing, unfortunately, Viltrox has chromatic aberration wide open at f1.8 in the center, and Sony shared the same problem, but at sides and corners. Indeed, color fringing is fixable when doing still photography by using one of the editing softwares such as Lightroom. However, Viltrox gets way better when stepping up to f2 in the center, while Sony still has the same problem at f2, f2.2 and f2.5. So let's say in general, both lenses, Sony and Viltrox, deliver a decent image quality. However, Viltrox is sharper in some cases, as well as the autofocus performance is a lot better. And indeed, investing in such a lens is recommended, especially if you do videos. I pretty much avoid the 50mm Sony in such a situation. Thank you for watching, guys, and I hope this video helped in making your decision. Show me a thumbs up and bump that subscribe button for more camera gear reviews. This was Oma, and see you in another one.